Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I just want to make sure that everyone can hear me. So if you can just write down in the chat, that would be great. Okay, that's great. I see you can hear me. Good vibes. We'll be starting in about 1 minute. We're just waiting for some final participants. Okay, so hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar about Priority's new release, version 22.0. I'd like to start off with a little apology. I'm a little under the weather, so if there are a few seconds pause once in a while, then you know I might be coughing or something, but it's okay. The show will go on and everything will be great. You'll hear about all our new highlights and new features. So I'm Nicole Lipper, a product manager here at Priority. For those of you who haven't met me yet, we're here to go over the main highlights of our newest Priority ERP release that will be officially released on April 17th, which is a little over a month from now. So I'm also going to take this great opportunity to share with you some of our plans for upcoming versions. Now, if you want to see all of the new features that this release has to offer beyond what I'm going to show you here today, you're more than welcome to check out the official release notes, which will be available on our website before the release comes out in April. Now, during the webinar, you can write your questions down in the webinar chat box on the right-hand side of your screen. We're going to try and answer your questions as we move through the presentation. At the end of the presentation, I'm going to take a few minutes to answer publicly any questions that might be relevant for everyone to hear. And of course, if at the end of the webinar your question wasn't answered, we'll get back to you after the webinar. No problem with that. So feel free to write any questions you may have and write them during the webinar. You don't have to wait to the end or anything like that. So thank you for being here today, and let's get started. Right before we do, I just want to say that this presentation today, you're going to witness some of our plans for upcoming releases, like I just previously said. It's important for you to be aware of these features, but it's also important for me to say that these are plans for the time being, and we can't really promise that any of these future features that you're going to hear about today will in fact be a part of a future release. So the first thing I want to talk about today is the ability to fit priority to your needs. Now, today we understand that users want and need the system to be customized to their specific needs. And I want to share some of the progress that we previously made in this area before we begin with what we did in this version. So as you know, today we already have the ability to provide templates per customer type. So when a new company joins us today, we can provide them with a template that is fit for their needs. Now, in the past, we told you how we did this for Zoom customers in Israel, for example. Recently, we used the same tools to develop a template for high-tech companies in Israel, for example. So, just to make sure this is understood, let's take, for example, the high-tech companies in Israel. Okay, we know that these types of companies mainly use purchase orders, purchase approvals, they maintain a budget, and they work in English, even though they're in Israel. So what we do is we make a template out of all of this, and when a new high-tech company installs Priority for the first time, the system will automatically be configured accordingly. So this is something that you should know. This is something that we already do today, and we will continue on doing in the future for more and more verticals. So now I want to tell you what we did in version 22.0 that have to do with fitting the system to your needs. And when I talk about fitting the system to your needs, I talk about a few layers. So that's what I want to talk about. So let's start with the company. In order to customize Priority for a company, we launched a short onboarding experience. So as of the new version 22.0, we will provide a questionnaire for new customers, and based on the answers, the system will configure itself. An example of a question could be, do you work with budgets? And if the company answers no, we will automatically hide all the forms and the fields that are related to budgets in the whole system. Now, in addition to this, when you set up a new company, Priority will guide you through the first steps, like adding a logo, entering the company details, adding a bank account, and so on. Now, all this is done so that the company can reach a point that they start generating documents as soon as possible. And you can see some of the examples of how it looks here on your screen. Now, after these few short steps, the company can enjoy a customized system with a workspace that is designed to its needs as well. Now, right now, what I told you about is implemented for cloud Zoom customers in Israel only, but we are planning to broaden this functionality to additional areas in the future. So, now that our company is configured by company type, for example, a company that uses purchase and finance processes, now we can move on to talk about the user. A user in a company enters the system and starts working. Now, using a smart mechanism, the user's day to day usage is monitored. And based on smart insights, we can give them personalized recommendations to fit their workspace to their personal needs. So let's say I work at a company, and most of the time I use purchase orders. I go into the purchase orders form and I enter purchase orders. The system can recommend that I change the layout of my screen so that I see what I need to see and I don't see what I don't need to see. So, for example, if I use a certain action a lot, but it's not one of the two actions that are accessible as a button on the top of my screen, the system can recommend to advance that action to the top of the list so I don't have to look for it each time in the action list over and over again. Same thing with sublevels. If I have sublevel forms that I never use, the system can recommend to hide those sublevel forms. And another example could be if I generate a certain report on a daily basis from the main menu, the system can recommend that I add that report as a tile to my homepage for easier access instead of going to the menu each time. Now, this solution is currently implemented for our cloud customers, which can enjoy a personalized workspace fit for their needs. And this is definitely a huge benefit for being in the cloud. And in the future, we will enrich the personalization functionality and expand it to other areas as well. Let me just say before we continue that the user does not have to accept these recommendations. They can also ask not to receive them in the first place. But of course, we believe that this is a key, especially for new users, but not only, to get a better user experience that is personalized for their everyday needs. So we saw how in some cases the system can learn about our behavior and recommend how to design our screen. Now we'll see how in other cases, we can teach the system what we want and what we need. So the user can teach the system to take repetitive tasks and do them for him or her with a click of a button. Let's talk about the Automation Hub. On the top part of the screens in the system, we have a new button for Priorities Automation Hub, as you can see here on the screen, the little robot icon. It allows users to build automations and shortcuts in Priority interactively and easily. Now, some of what you will find here in the Automation Hub you might already be familiar with, like macros and business rules and autofill rules, but some may be totally new. Now, there are two main changes in the macro, for example, in Priority in this version 22.0. One of them is the user experience for building a macro rule is more intuitive and easy. And this means that you don't have to be an expert user to set up a shortcut or an automation anymore. And the second thing is that we added the ability to set up macro automation for full business processes. Up until today, you could only set up a macro inside one form. Now you can set up a macro for more than one form. So, for example, if we have a delivery manager that goes over all the sales orders and wants the sales orders that are supposed to be fulfilled to want to open a shipping document for all those sales orders that will be fulfilled, let's say tomorrow, they can easily do that with a click of a button, and all the shipping documents will automatically be opened for each and every one of the sales orders on the screen that the delivery manager went over. Now, in the next upcoming versions, we are going to continue to take strong tools in Priority, transfer them to the Automation Hub, and of course, improve their user experience alongside with adding new functionality as well, just like we saw here today for the macro in version 22.0. So let's talk about a few UI changes that we made in version 22.0. As you can see here on the right, we added functionality for those users that want to search using copy-paste from a spreadsheet. You can now copy a list of, let's say, document numbers or part numbers or customer numbers, for example, from an Excel spreadsheet, and paste them inside the priority search, just like you can see here on the screen. Also, while running a saved search on a form with search results, you can now add the search results to the already displayed records, as you see on the bottom right. And of course, moving on to the left, as in every release, we also continued to improve the intuitiveness and appearance of the system. And this time you can see that the report dialog box has a new look. And you can see here on the bottom that there is a special area for the saved reports here on the bottom. In Priority Mobile, we added new dedicated fields for a faster and more intuitive user experience. I won't talk about all the new mobile features, but I will mention the first two. You can see here on the screen that the final price for a document or for a list of documents can be highlighted, just like you can see here on the bottom for this sales order, just like you can see here for this list of sales order, and just like you can see here on the top, which is actually the total for all the sales orders on the list. And the second thing I want to show you is that if you want to update a customer or a supplier's details, you can now do so with one combined field that includes the name and the number together. Let's move on to some ERP features. And before we start talking about the specific features, I want to say something in general. Part of what you're seeing here today on our webinar and the features, some of the features of the new release, they're all a result of feedback that we receive from our customers and our partners and our employees. So in version 22.0, a total of 48 wanted functionality items from a total of 286 customers were taken care of. Now, some of the things that you asked for are already planned for upcoming versions. I won't go into any detail right now, but what is important for me that you take from here is that your feedback matters, and keep giving us feedback from the field. It's very important, and it's a big part of every priority release. Moving on to digital approvals. Most of you are probably familiar with the approval lists in priority. They allow having a round of approval in order to approve documents in the system. Now, in recent releases, and also in the current release, version 22.0, we focused on a few things that have to do with approvals. One of them was to create a unified experience for all the approval lists in the system so that all forms that have approval lists, currently and in the future, will behave exactly the same way, both visually and functionality-wise. We also added approval lists to new forms such as price quotes, sales orders. And as part of this process, we now allow users in the approval list to approve documents via email. So what I want to show you here on the right part of your screen is a user that received an email with the details of, for example, a purchase order that they need to approve. And you can see here on the bottom, there are two new buttons, approve and reject, right inside the email. And the user can approve or reject the purchase order straight from inside the email. And of course, that will automatically update priority. And the user doesn't even have to work directly with priority in order for this to happen. It can just happen right because they clicked the button in the email. In the upcoming versions, we will let companies set up approval lists per role. And we're planning to build a mechanism that will automatically fill the approval list code in documents based on certain criteria like department and budget item, etc. Moving on to distributed organizations. In the new release, we continued to add functionality for distributed organizations. Let me just recap for those of you who don't know or don't remember. Distributed organizations means organizations that have multiple companies or multiple instances of priority. So in version 22.0, we added the ability to work with serial numbers on a multi-company level. This is especially useful, for example, if there is a company that has several companies on the installation. And for example, company A is the one that manufactured the serial number, but then it transfers the serial number to company B, and that serial is sold from company B. And then, for example, company B receives the serial number back from the customer and sends it to company C to be fixed. This new mechanism in priority will allow full traceability of the serial number and its serial tree throughout all the companies on the installation. We also added the ability to perform reconciliations between two companies on the same installation that have a client and vendor relationship between them. So now you can easily upload the data from the sister company for easy reconciliation. In the MDM module, which is the new EDI for those of you who are familiar with the previous name, we initiated a new type of privilege in the system. This privilege enables to define which fields in a record that was generated by the EDI the company will be able to edit, and which fields will remain uneditable. So, for example, if I distributed a vendor from my master company to all the other companies, I don't want one of the companies to be able to accidentally change the vendor's name or the VAT number. But on the other hand, I do want them to be able to change the vendor's payment terms because this is something that's per company. So I can use the new privilege type to do this. Let me tell you a little bit about what's in store for distributed organizations. We're going to extend our data privilege management tool, which is the tool that allows to define privileges to read data based on different criteria like agents and branches, etc. And this time, we will focus on the parameter input of reports and procedures. Users that aren't allowed to see certain data won't be able to run processes on that same data as well. Now, for users that work with subsidiaries or branches, we're going to enable these users to be able to enter the system in a certain subsidiary or branch. And as a result, all new documents that that user will open will automatically be associated with that subsidiary or branch. And last on the list, we will enrich our object distribution tool with the ability to distribute profiles. As you know, in every version, we add functionality for our customers around the world. So in this version, 22.0, we have a new product localization in South Africa. Furthermore, we continue to add functionality to our existing localizations. So in Belgium, we added integrations to well-known tools in the Belgian market, like Company Web. In Italy, we added the ability to create a visual copy of an incoming invoice in case there's no PDF attachment. We supported a new regulation in Portugal to add a now mandatory QR code to invoices and an account tree for SAFT. In France, we have a new XML file for Intrastat. And for our European countries, we added the ability to use Priority's prepayment invoice feature because now this feature supports multiple VAT rates, as is the case generally in Europe. Talking about the next upcoming versions, in the US, we are planning an integration with a payroll software. In the UK, we are planning digital banking, similar to what we already have in Israel. In Poland, there is already a new localization being built as we speak by one of our partners in Poland. Now, we are helping out, we're supporting that partner, but this is actually the first time where a partner-built product localization will be made together, of course, with us. And in Asia, we will soon be starting our first steps in expanding to the Far East. First, we're going to do this by adding functionality to support special rounding needs in countries in the Far East like Japan, Korea, Taiwan. Now, we're not talking about a full localization just yet, but rather at this point an infrastructure for rounding that's customary in these territories. Finance. So the revenue recognition module that's been with us since version 20.1 continued to expand, and now it includes more functionality for our customers. You can now set various recognition components per each document line when setting up fair value on the document level. We added support for defining an unbilled receivables account with the same hierarchy that we supported for a deferred income account. When the revenue is recognized before the billing, the journal will post to the unbilled receivables account. And when working with revenue recognition by progress of completion, we added support for an expiry date in contract obligations. So when the date passes, the system will automatically recognize 100% of the obligation. This is especially useful when recognizing revenue for professional services that have a limited usage period. Let's talk about reconciliations. Four years ago, we launched a new split reconciliation worksheet to replace the legacy reconciliation worksheet. And this was by offering an easier and more intuitive user experience for reconciliations. Now, a recent check that we made showed us that over 1,000 of our cloud customers already use the new split worksheets. And as the years went by, we continued to add more and more functionality to the split worksheets. And now we can see that many of the challenges that our users faced in the past no longer exist today. And this is a lot because the new split reconciliation worksheets. And of course, we keep adding functionality to them all the time, including in the current version 22.0. So as you see here on your screen, the new feature is that when you report a partial reconciliation, a pop-up screen will appear instead of a procedure, which was what we had before, and it will let you fill in the details of the partial reconciliation. Now, due to the fact that this is now a screen, you can use priority screen capabilities like setting up autofill rules or business rules, making the user experience a lot easier and a lot faster. About reconciliations, after we had extensive talks with users in the field, we came to a conclusion that the legacy reconciliation worksheets should gradually be removed from the system in favor of the split reconciliation worksheets. And this is because what I just told you before. So the first step is that all new customers on our cloud as of version 22.0 will only see the split reconciliation worksheets, meaning they will never know that there used to be anything else before that. And during the next few months, until the release of the next version, 22.1 in October, we're planning to help our cloud Zoom customers do this by providing them with webinars and videos and other materials, and ultimately hold their hand until they complete the full transition to the split reconciliation worksheets. And when version 22.1 will be released in October, our cloud Zoom customers will no longer have the legacy worksheets in the system. Now, later on after that, we're going to continue to do so for more types of customers until eventually all customers will have made the move to the split reconciliation worksheets. Now, of course, all the while, we will continue to add functionality to the split reconciliation worksheets to make the day-to-day work easier. And one of the plans for this is, for the next version, is to allow multi-select on both sides of the worksheet. Moving on, we added support for standing order payments to vendors. When recording a bank statement line, you can now specify the vendor that sent you the payment and select the invoices for which the payment was taken. As a result, the system will automatically record the payment and the invoice will be reconciled as well as the bank line. Now, similar to this, you can also choose a primary account and the system will automatically create a reconciliation transaction and reconcile it with the bank statement. Now, all this is in addition to what we already offer, which is the capability to reconcile customer invoices and create receipts. This workflow is designed for companies that want to close a bank statement and create entry transactions simultaneously as they go through the bank statement without using the reconciliation worksheets. So priority payments, our payment solution, continues to expand as more and more customers join our solution. Click to pay, which is a feature where the end customer can click on a button in the invoice and make a payment, is now available to collect payments for sales orders and price quotes as well. So the printout of the sales order will include a Pay Now button that will redirect the end customer to the familiar payment page. And after the payment, the system will create a receipt for that order. And in case the payment was made for a quote, then the system will create both a order and a receipt. Next thing, we now support more payment methods. So we have SEPA for the European market and BACS for the British market. We are also glad to update that our technology partner, PayMe, has gone live with a full reporting experience for the American market, which was up until now only available in Israel. So from now on, American customers can enjoy a dashboard that has full commission visibility, including invoices and reports that help with monthly reconciliations. Looking forward, our future plans include continuing to enrich priority payments with more payment methods like Apple Pay. Companies that wish to do so will be able to let their end customers partially pay invoices using Click to Pay and the payment portal. And we will take the onboarding process one step forward, making it easier, faster, and a lot more digital. You may remember that in the last version, we announced the new multi-company budget feature. So in this version, 22.0, we added some controls for defining financial constants in the system for working with this feature in the system, and they're aimed at minimizing errors. We also changed the way budget control works in respect to deferred expense invoices. So now the budget control will consider the line amount divided into term periods and the corresponding appropriation. If the term goes into another year, the system will work based on the budget version for the relevant year. We also added more dimensions to the Budget BI report to allow more comprehensive analysis of budget. So the dimensions are account, cost center of the account, and profit center. In Israel, we continued to add functionality to Priorities payroll module as a result of regulation changes, but obviously we won't go into that right now. Moving on to logistics. So part availability, one of the most useful forms in the system, allows you to see the availability of a part based on its inventory, commitments, and predicted entry into the inventory. So this form has some new functionality added to it as of version 22.0. You can now exclude certain documents from the calculation. For example, I can say that all sales orders that are still in draft status will be excluded from the calculation. We also added more types of forms to the availability calculation, such as service calls, blanket purchase orders, and blanket sales orders. And if you are a company that works with branches, you can now track the part availability in each branch separately. Our integration with ShipEngine that allows our customers in North America, Australia, and the UK to ship goods using shippers like UPS and FedEx has also some new abilities added to it as of version 22.0. First of all, you can now define for each customer who pays for the shipment. Is it the company or the customer? Instead of manually defining this while doing the shipping. Also, when it's the company that's paying for the shipment, you can have a shipping line automatically added to the shipping document if you wish to do so. And lastly, you can now generate manifests as PDF documents. This is for companies that work with certain shippers that require this. Looking forward, we are going to, in the next versions, we are going to do some work on international shipping, talking about customs when sending goods from country A to country B. And we are going to take care of residential and commercial addresses because sometimes there's a difference in the shipping costs between those type of addresses. So industrial and commercial companies that manage servicing processes can now plan MRP according to service calls without needing to record a sales order. And the quantities of planned servicing parts will also deduct from forecast quantities accordingly. In the next versions, we're going to add the ability to answer the following questions right from a sales order. Is it possible to provide the ordered quantity on the requested date? And if not, how much of the ordered quantity can be provided on the requested date? And what's the actual date that I can provide the ordered quantity by? Moving on to the next topic, preventative maintenance. We added support for seasonal maintenance. So now, for example, you can set up a monthly maintenance plan and be able to exclude certain months from the maintenance plan as needed. We also now allow assigning manpower with specialties to different maintenance types so that when the maintenance plan is generated, these special employees will already be assigned to the service calls automatically. In inventory, in addition to the multi-company serial numbers that we talked about in context to distributed organizations, we added a new feature for companies that want to tighten the control over inventory transactions for serial numbers. And now what they can do, they can block users from performing any inventory transactions that don't match up with the serial number registration in the system, as opposed to before when it was just a warning. And for companies that use our WMS solution, we have the ability to temporarily prevent warehouse employees from accessing warehouse bins. So, for example, there can be a certain bin that's undergoing an inventory count or being cleaned, and we can have the system temporarily prevent the warehouse employees from going over there. A few words about Priorities Rental module. This module has been with us since version 20.0. It's helpful for businesses that rent out equipment, including checking availability, both visually and using a Gantt chart, making the order itself for the rental, shipping, returning the rented equipment, and of course, a full end-to-end billing process. In version 22.0, we added support for availability checking for companies that rent equipment that's not serialized. And we added a new partial return feature for companies that they rent out large amounts of equipment, but they gradually receive them back on unexpected dates and unexpected quantities. In the next versions, we are going to add prepayment options and index linked prices. Our sales rep commission mechanism now allows to define a commission percent per part. And this is in addition to the already existing options, which is per sales rep, per customer, and per part family. And for each one of these options, you can also define tiered commission. So for example, the sales rep's commission could be, for example, 5%, But if the total line amount is above $10,000, then the sales rep's commission is 7% and not 5%. In the next versions, we're going to continue to add functionality to the sales rep commission mechanism. We're going to allow adding another sales rep to the document, and we're going to add more options for commission calculation, like, for example, defining that the commission is calculated based on the profit of the line and not the sales amount. So besides the different features and tools we develop here at Priority, integrations continue to be a significant growth factor for us. They provide us with innovation and they provide us with additional functionality. And one of the really good examples for this is Zapier. Zapier is a platform for connecting software using API. It has over 3,000 different applications that can be connected one to another. And as of 2 years ago, for those of you who don't know, Priority is one of those applications, which means that companies can easily connect their Priority system to other applications that are offered by Zapier, for example, e-commerce applications. Now, up until now, applications could connect to Priority and read data or write data to Priority, but it was always the other application that was the initiator. From now on, Priority can also be the initiator and connect to other applications. We call this webhooks. So this technology is now integrated into Zapier. So if, for example, a sales order's status in Priority is changed to confirmed, we can have data sent to another application. So this technology that I was telling you about, webhooks, it's available from version 20.1. And as I told you, it's implemented now into Zapier. But it's important to note that it can be used not only in Zapier, but actually in any third-party application that you want to transfer data to with Priority as the initiator. So we finished going over the features of the new Priority release. And for some of the features that we talked about today, we are going to conduct something that is called a product session, which is a dedicated, in-depth webinar for Priority Software employees only. And this time, we are going to go over the reconciliation experience in Priority. We're going to dive into personalization and automation, like we talked about in the beginning today. We're going to talk about the latest features in the revenue recognition model, and we're going to learn about the new multi-company serial number feature. So I invite you to expand your knowledge, join us in these product sessions. I will be sending the webinar links sometime in the near future. So all you have to do is sign up in advance, and that's it. You're ready to go. So in conclusion, today we went over the main features of version 22.0. We also looked a little bit at some of the future plans for version 22.1 and beyond. And I showed you that you will be able to get in-depth webinars, which are called product sessions, for some of the features as well. So I want to move on and see if you had any questions that may be of interest to everyone. So hold on a second, please. Okay, so let me see what we have here. First of all, there is a question here about recording. Yes, this session is recorded, as are all our sessions, and there is a folder in the company drive that has all the sessions that we do here in the product team. Of course, like I said before, these are internal sessions for Priority Software employees only, so it can't be sent to anyone outside the company. But if you would like to hear uh, our webinars again, if you missed it, if you want to, check something or listen to it again, you can definitely do so, and it's always available. Let me see what else we have here. Okay, I see we have a few questions here about personalization. So what I want to do is just explain again. We monitor the use of our cloud customers. So if, for example, we see that a certain user uses the same form or procedure or report many times over a period of time, which is typically 30 days, and we see that the user accesses these entities, for example, from the main menu, then we can recommend adding these entities as a tile to the user's homepage. And that way they have easier and faster access. Now, we do the same inside the forms themselves. Okay, if we see that a user doesn't use certain sub-level forms at all, then once a month we will recommend that they hide these sub-level forms from their form. And if, for example, this user did in fact hide all of the unused sub-level forms from their form, next month, if they continue to work the same, we won't recommend anything, of course, because they already hid them. Now, the user, as I said before, can ask not to receive any recommendations from the system, and then we won't recommend a thing. And of course, like I said before, there's also a similar mechanism for actions in the form. So if we see that a user uses actions that are in the action menu more than actions that are outside of the menu, which are the buttons on the top of the screen, we'll recommend to organize these actions so that the most used actions are first on the list, and then they will be buttons on the top of the screen instead of hidden inside the menu. And of course, this will result in being accessed faster and more easily. Now, everything I just told you about personalization is based on monitoring of our cloud customers. Therefore, only cloud customers can enjoy this really, really great feature. Now, for us, this is a real differentiator. This will encourage more and more customers to migrate to the cloud, and cloud customers will be able to enjoy a personalized user experience. And actually, we're very proud that we can provide these smart features for our cloud customers. Let me see what else we have here. Okay, looks like that's it. So let me just tell you, first of all, that if you have any more questions and you would like to ask us offline, then you can do so. You can shoot me an email and always ask questions. Thank you for joining me here today to go over the planned features for version 22.0. I'm Nicole Lipper, and I'd be happy to for you to join me next time with our next product webinar. Have a good day.